Well, the time has come. I've been putting this off, but I think it's rear main seal time on the Charger. So it looks like we've got a possible, it's small, but it's a leak. Looks like a rear main seal leak coming from the back. So come over here and check it out. Should have brought my light, but I've started to get a drip out of the cover, the flywheel cover, and of course we just put this Tramac in about, I think, maybe a year and a half ago, and everything's been working great. But it looks like whenever I leave it set, I see a little small, the puddle's getting bigger and bigger, and you can see probably a little bit of oil there, as a matter of fact. So we're about to get this off. We've gone ahead and purchased the Mancini 440 big block rear main seal retainer kit along with the rear main seal. So we're gonna get ready to drain this thing out, but I want to show you what we bought from Mancini. And Mopar Connection, Sean at Mopar Connection just did a great, I believe that's his name, Kevin, maybe Kevin. Anyway, great guy. He just did a video of this being done on the engine stand, his fresh build. He's building, I think he's building a Hemi, but it's the same, pretty much the same concept here, I believe. But we're gonna go ahead and replace this rear main seal. I've been dreading this, so obviously we're gonna have to uncouple our center link, drag link, crosser, GM, I'll call them something different, but basically our center link here, disconnect it, get it out of the way, and then of course drain and then drop the pan. So I bought the two extra oil pan gaskets to go along on the bottom and top side of the windage tray. Now I also think that I could possibly have a leak out by the intake, but it's not enough what I'm seeing to do near what it's doing out here. So we're gonna pull this in a second and see what we see on that flywheel. And then I'm gonna go in, and I was nervous about, I don't remember ever pulling this pan in the car. I built this engine in 2012, so 12 years ago I built this. Just to recap, it's a 440 block, factory 440 block, has a 4¼ stroke crankshaft, it's a scat crank, 4¼ stroke, has scat rods, diamond flat top pistons, Indy Max wedge heads, solid roller cam from Comp, custom grind, and it has Harlan Sharp rocker arms and a Mopar M1 intake topped by a Holly Sniper EFI system. So like I said, it's been trouble-free for 12 years, so I really can't complain. But you can see something's going on. Yes, the oil pan is tight, but let's come over here and I'll show you what we bought from Mancini. This is our retainer kit from Mancini, and this is the one that Kevin Shaw bought. And the seal, there's two different seals they offer. This one is the 220, I see a G1-5, but rear main seal with Viton seal. This one is actually a little different. It's the one to be used with this retainer. I bought the whole thing as a kit. From what Kevin was saying in his video, I believe this has a little more crush. It's a little tighter than the factory top Viton seal, or the one you get from Summit. It also came, what I really like, it came with guide pins. Now you gotta remember, doing a rear main seal on the engine stand, it's pretty easy, right? You got the engine turned over, you're not fighting gravity. But what I hate doing these things in a car, any car, whether it's a GM, Ford, or Chrysler, some GMs you gotta just pull the engine. A lot of Pontiacs we've done, there was no way of getting around it. We just had to pull the engine, replace the rear main seal. I think on a Mopar, I've done a Roadrunner and a Super B. I've never done mine, but you have room enough, I believe, to pull the pan. So again, I've been dreading this for a good while, but here we go. I want to share this. We're going to see how it goes. Okay, I want to share this with everybody. I should have pulled the inspection cover off the transmission before I uncoupled everything, and I have not removed my oil pan. I have not. I've just got all the nuts off of the studs, but I want you to look. I don't think we have a rear main seal issue at all. This flywheel's dry as a bone. If I had a rear main seal leak, just like on a converter on this flywheel, I would see oil spread out with a bunch of legs going everywhere, and it's dry as a bone. It's dry as a bone. So this is telling me that we have an intake issue, and it was worse than I thought. So this oil is not coming from the rear main seal. Thank God I did not drop the pan. So this is going to be a different issue. I'm not dropping this pan for something that's not broke. But I want everybody to share, I want to share with everybody how I should have pulled the inspection cover. And really that's 101. That's just a dumbass mistake on my part, because I just made the assumption, and everybody knows what you do when you do that. So we're going to go back up top. We're going to put everything back on, and this thing is nice and dry everywhere. So again, I think we're migrating from the top. I think we've got a seal coming from the back of the intake. It's probably pushing out that back channel rail. Well, we're about to put oil in our filter. We got our old filter off. Again, everybody needs to learn from my mistake here. That's why I'm sharing it. I should have pulled that inspection cover beforehand, but luckily all we had to do is put our nuts back on the studs, seal the pan back up. It never broke seal. It was still stuck to the block. So looks like I've got a retainer kit, Mancini retainer kit, but I am going to keep it. The next big block Chrysler we build, we'll probably put this in, or if mine goes out, I've got one on hand. Plus I have my oil pan gaskets. So I've got my Wix 51 515 filter. Now there's two different oils that I like to use. When I build a flat tappet cam engine with flat tappet lifters, I like to use the ZR1, the Valvoline ZR1. It has a ton of zinc phosphorus in it, the ZDDP that all your flat tappet lifters need. This car has a full roller cam, solid roller lifters, and we really don't need all the ZDDP. So I like the AMSOIL. What I had in here, the last oil change was AMSOIL, because I had my receipt, I checked it out, and I'm reordering the next set of, I believe it was, I think I ordered 7 quarts because of what the size pan we have, but you can't beat AMSOIL. Even when you break in a flat tappet cam engine, you can always shift to this after you've broken in the rings and broke the engine in, but AMSOIL is pretty hard to beat. All right, so now it looks like we're gonna be pulling this intake manifold. Back behind here, back behind the intake, I've already taken my mirror, and I don't think I'm going to be able to show on the GoPro, but I can try. Let me get my mirror here. Back right about there. I see a trail where the oil's gone down. If you see that burnt in my mirror, I don't know, you may not be able to. Yep, there it is right there. We got a leak. Now here's the deal. This is somewhat of a unique situation. This manifold is a Mopar M1 intake. What's different about it is it's not open on the bottom. It has a plate, a solid plate, as you can see here. Under that intake manifold, I believe it's an Indy Valley pan cover, the aluminum Valley pan cover. Now, what I think is happening is when I put this intake on and I switched over to that cover, I don't think it's sealing quite like it should because it's bottoming out on the Valley pan, the Valley cover. So we're about to find out, but I've got to uncouple my fuel system and my sniper. And the good thing about a big block Chrysler is it's a dry intake. We don't have to fool with any coolant problem, any draining anything, and I can leave my valve covers where they're at, as you can see. But again, this intake is a Mopar M1 big block intake, and it's been port matched to the Indy Max wedge heads that have also been ported. So give us a chance to see what's going on inside there anyway, but we're about to take this thing off. Okay, I think we're getting close to where our leak's at. So we just pulled our intake manifold off. And you can see, I can't tell if it's either the Valley cover itself where it goes down and bolts to the china wall of the block, or is it coming from the inspection cover? I've got a lot of oil in this spot right here, and it almost looks like it's been leaking from behind the valley cover, and the engine is at a slight angle backwards. So I've just broke these loose, and I'm going to see. I think there's two things going on. I think for one, I need to clearance my intake a little bit more for these bolts. I may have not got them close enough. I don't know, but I'm about to take the inspection cover off and see, one, is there supposed to be a gasket there? Maybe I didn't put it in. I don't know, or not. You guys have these Indy Valley covers with the inspection cover, let me know. But we're about to take this off. See all that? I think we had, see there? It's leaking. Yeah. This looks like it was our valley covers all. Yeah. Yep. So, to my friends out there that's running this, perhaps I was a dumbass and didn't install a gasket. I don't know, but I need to do my research and see. This thing was obviously leaking from the inspection tray, because when I put this cover on, I used the gray silicone, and I've never had an issue with my china walls. I take my time. So I think what's going on is we're leaking out the inspection tray. It's migrating back to the corners. It was leaking really bad, and I did have to tighten one of the screws on this side. So while we're here, we're going to look the rockers over, make sure everything looks good. That's a bigger thing. I'll definitely be very happy knowing that these these solid lifters are still holding up, which I hadn't had any problem with them. But I think this may be our problem right here. Back to having fun with our Play-Doh. Remember I showed you on the Pontiac, I used the Play-Doh for like valve to piston clearance and other things. I can't remember, but sure enough, I put the Play-Doh on our valley cover plates. And if you look at the back here, obviously I didn't clearance the intake manifold enough on that back one. Over here, we're probably okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and clearance all four of those areas again, just really quick. But yeah, that definitely need to be clearanced. We probably had a leak, it looked like, back here. It might have not been sealing quite the way it should. So I'm about to clearance that intake manifold just a little bit more. All right, Play-Doh told the tale. So we did some clearancing on the intake, some further clearancing, and now it looks like we got clearance on our bolts. So now we can move forward. I'm really trying to make a decision here. It was leaking pretty good. So I've got to make a decision on what do I use to seal that. Some guys don't seal anything at all. I mean, a lot of you guys, I looked at the Trick Flow valley cover, and they have a seal. Looks like it's a little seal that goes along the edge to seal the valley cover plate. It doesn't seem that Indy makes a gasket for this. And obviously I don't want to seal the damn thing where I can't get it back off either. So I'm trying to make a decision here. Most likely I'm going to seal it, but we'll let you know what we're going to do. Okay, so now I've clearanced my M1 intake. Now, I don't know, when I tried to get this intake, these kind of were hard to find. And I had somebody on Mopar find me one. I don't know, maybe they're not hard to find, but they're supposed to be pretty good intakes, and I've really liked it. I just want to share with this, some people have asked me about my engine, and I sent this intake manifold out to, the gentleman's deceased now. I think he's been deceased for 2 years, but his name was Larry Smith. And I have another friend named Larry Smith up in Ohio that runs a badass 4-second dart. Good friend of mine up in Ohio. But this is a different Larry Smith. He did a lot of NASCAR porting from back in the day, and he had his own machine shop, and he did really nice work, and he would post videos of doing what he was doing. So I sent my Mopar M1 intake out to him, and he enlarged everything to a max wedge port for this, and I sent him the gasket, said it was running, and you can see he even blended the runners here. If you go inside and you look at these runners, he did such a nice job. And it's a shame that we have people like him that, you know, are no longer with us, that that basically had trade secrets. I hope he shared them with perhaps his kids or somebody, but he did such a nice job. So I want to come over and show you the heads we're running on this car. These are Indy Max Wedge heads, and they've been ported. Now let me tell you about where I got these heads and everything that the combination for this engine. These heads came from a place called CompuFlow, and this gentleman's name was Nick Wilson. And he ran a machine shop, and he campaigned, I think, one of the fastest max wedge Plymouths, I think, or Dodges in a certain class. And he was very well known in the Mopar ranks, at least up there around the Ohio area. And he did fantastic work out of his machine shop. And he's no longer with us either, unfortunately. I think he passed probably 6 or 7 years ago. But geez, was he ever so good and extremely intelligent. And anyway, I got the port or the flow numbers back on these heads, and I think they ended up flowing back. The email, I looked it up, they're around 338 CFM, I think. I can't remember at what lift, but he spec'd out the cam. It's a custom solid roller cam with a lot of lift, and I'll make sure that cam card here in a moment if I can find it. But before I put the intake on, I just want everybody to see that this engine has got more power than I can lay to the ground. So it's really overkill for this, but I just want everybody to know before I go putting the intake manifold back on. Okay, not to forget, we've laid our small coat of silicone. I use the gray silicone. I use that on most of everything, but obviously I still made a mess here. But it was a thin bead. I called my friend Just Mopar Joe on YouTube. I think everybody knows my channel, knows Joe's channel. And I asked Joe, I said, Joe, is there a gasket that goes in here, or do you run silicone? And he just replied back, and he said, yes, you run a small bead of silicone on that valley cover plate, on the inspection plate. So thank the Lord, that's what I had started with, and Joe responded. So Joe, thank you, buddy, Joe Williams. So y'all want to watch a badass video? He's got tons of videos on big block Mopars, and he's done dyno tests. So y'all go over to Just Mopar Joe and check out his dyno tests. Okay, well, what started off as what we thought was a rear main seal leak, capped off at the end of the day actually being a valley cover inspection plate leak. And again, I want to go back and thank Joe Williams at Just Mopar Joe. I pulled that inspection cover off, and I didn't have a gasket or O-ring or anything on it. I bought that thing like 12 years ago from Indy when I built the engine. So I put our bead of gray silicone around that inspection plate, and we put everything back at all. And we also clearanced our intake manifold, because obviously I didn't do it right the first time I built this engine. And it's very well we could have had a vacuum leak, because it may have not been seated all the way. It never acted that way. It never had any issues, but the sniper with the EFI might have been trying to self-correct for that. So I had plenty of vacuum for the hideaways. They worked great. So, but again, the EFI could be correcting for that. That's one thing about EFI. It'll mask some issues if you're not careful. So, lessons learned. I made a huge rookie mistake. I just almost started pulling the oil pan. We got all the nuts and everything off the bottom of it, and right before I broke the seal to pull the pan, I pulled the inspection cover, and I saw that the flywheel was dry as a bone. So that was extremely rookie mistake. Anytime you think you got a rear main seal leak, I don't care if it's an automatic or standard, pull that inspection cover. And if you've got basically basically oil spread out, slung out, you'll see it on that flywheel or on your flex plate. Man, it's dry as a bone. So when we got back up, I was like, well, I always thought I had somewhat maybe a small intake gasket leak or something up top, but I never could really see it. The valve covers are sealed tight. There's no oil at all coming from the valve covers in the back, but you could see where the oil was migrating past the inspection cover. And we put that silicone on there, sealed it all up. We fired it up, plugged everything back in, fired right up, sat here and watched. Really only time will tell. I've got to get this thing out on the road and just start driving. And like I've been driving it, that rear main seal looks like it's been holding up. That makes me feel pretty good. And again, I've built a lot of 440 since then. I haven't had any issues with rear main seal leaks. So we changed our oil, we changed our filter. We've got our AmSoil 10W40 back in. And I'll keep everybody updated on this valley cover leak. And again, don't just make assumptions, because you know what happens when you assume. So everybody have a great Sunday.